What's up, guys? Jeremy Conn here. It is the Lowdown. This is with Pickdawgz.com. Make sure you click the like, subscribe button, notification button. We'll tell you every time we post something here. So interesting enough, we have baseball back. I kind of went over the slate of games for Friday as all the pitching matchups weren't coming out. Here it is, Friday, and games are getting ready to start. And we still didn't have a lot of pitching matchups. There were still some teams that were playing coy and not telling us until late who was going to start. That irritates me. I was just irritating trying to put everything together and who you're starting. I know with the Yankees, like the talk of Max Fried starting that game, maybe it's feeling him out to see how he feels after pitching on Tuesday, but those guys pitch an inning. They're fine. I mean, they'll do that on a side session as well. But anyway, let's get into today's games. I don't have a ton of time here I'll have more to go over Sunday's slate, but I think Saturday is really interesting, and we do have a couple of games that we're going to talk about that we talked about yesterday, but just different pitching matchups because I like the spots, and there's a couple things that were pointed out to me. So as we get started here, let's start it off with the Cincinnati Reds at the New York Mets. I thought this one was intriguing. It's David Wright day where they're retiring his jersey, something we talked about on the morning show on Friday. 9 miles an hour blowing out. It's 82 degrees roughly, somewhere in the low 80s, and we get Nick Martinez and Clay Holmes. I'm going to tell you I like the over here. I'm still waiting for the Nick Martinez to get blown up game. I don't think he's a bad pitcher, but I don't think he's as good as he had been pitching towards the end of the first half of the season before the All-Star break. But Mets Day, I think you could look at the Mets if you wanted to bet them. I don't have the spread in front of me, so I don't know what they'd be favored by. They've been a very good home team. But I would lean towards the over in this matchup. I don't know if you guys – like some people buy into the whole narrative street thing. Like I was just talking about Max Fried pitching against his former team. Does he have revenge on his mind? Is it something that he's not even thinking about? I think sometimes we create narratives that don't have anything to do with it, and whether we're right or wrong, we'll lean on it and say, hey, I told you this happened. That's one of my favorite things about doing write-ups for gambling, because when you're doing the full write-up, and let's say you were all over the Mets here, like, oh, I love the Mets bats. It's going to go over the total because the Mets, they're going to score so many runs, and I think the Reds can scratch a couple out. And then all of a sudden the Reds win 10-2, and was I right? Yeah, I was right on the bet, but my process wasn't right. But sometimes that's how it goes. It's better to be lucky than good. But that's why I like doing this stuff and talking about it. And it's kind of weird for me because, again, doing this stuff a day before, you get to see how my mind works looking at certain things. There was a play in yesterday's, the Orioles. Morton was on the mound, and I told you I didn't know which way to go, that I would lean towards the Orioles because Morton's just been excellent. It turned out I was more on Morton's strikeout prop at over 4.5. That game still hasn't gone off, so I don't know what happens, but it is kind of interesting so you guys can see what I'm looking at and whether or not I'm right or wrong in my process, because that's what I care more about, whether people believe it or not, is am I going through, it's like I coached basketball for a while, and I always said, if you do things the right way, it's eventually going to work out. It doesn't mean just because you're taking a great shot, it's going to go in, but if you keep taking great shots, meaning wide open shots, it's going to be better in the long run for us, and more times than not, it's going to work out. And, I wasn't a big fan of the no, yes shot. The kid that's getting ready to shoot a three that has no business shooting it 10 feet beyond the three-point line, and you start yelling, no, and then he banks it. And then it's kind of the worst thing that could happen in those situations because now that kid thinks, hey, I should probably put up another one since I hit the first one. But it's like that. I feel like if your process is correct and you're constantly going through it, tweaking some things that you have wrong, like that's why I'm using so many different outlets when I handicap a game, whether it's going to Consensus Report and watching where the money's going, looking at the matchups. Is there an edge to be had either way in baseball? Looking at the weather. Is there an edge to be had there? Checking out player props. Are these algorithms spitting out something weird? Is there a random day where I have 4 Royals bats at the top of my lineup and they're not playing in cores? There's these things happen, and so using all that, I feel like it does give me an edge more times than not, and doing it the right way, it's going to work out in the end. I'll get off of this topic. But again, I would lean towards the Mets over there. I do think the Mets are interesting on David Wright Day, but I'm not going to roll with that. I don't know what the price tag is just yet. White Sox and Pirates. We were on the over on Friday with the White Sox and Pirates. Bailey Falter was going. against Jonathan Cannon. This one's another interesting one because Mike Burrows has actually pitched way better than I thought he was going to. And Adrian Hauser has pitched way better than I thought he was going to. Hauser, I said this before, he is the most extreme ground ball pitcher, I think, in all of baseball. I don't know if that's changed because there are some guys that are just pound it in the dirt merchants, right? He throwing junk up there and watching guys just pound a damn thing in the dirt, that soft contact. But when they're not getting ground balls, they get annihilated. And I've said this before at Wrigley, when the wind's blowing out, if you have a ground ball pitcher, and a lot of those guys on the Cubs are fly ball hitters, you can look that stuff up and match it up. It's a rough day for those guys because they can lift that baseball, and if they're not hitting their marks and keeping the ball down, good night. But in this spot, look, the Pirates' offense isn't one that you're afraid of, and if Adrian Hauser can get them to turn over on quite a few, and Burrows at home, is a light rain in the forecast, 5 to 6 miles an hour wind blowing kind of from right to left. It may eventually go out to left field, which I do think would be a bump for bats, but I can't project that. I'm actually going to look at the under here with the White Sox and Pirates, thinking that Adrian Hauser gets his ground balls, that Mike Burrows getting strikeouts against a weak White Sox lineup. As much as I love the over on Friday in the Pirates game, I'm going to lean towards the under in this one. The pitching matchup, and both these teams' bats are one thing. You're trying to find the right spots to bet on them. So I think this really is a good under spot. Let's go to the San Diego Padres at the Washington Nats. There's light rain in the forecast. It's Yu Darvish versus Mitchell Parker, wind out at about 4 miles an hour. So not a ton of help there. I've talked about this before. The Nats have a couple of interesting pitchers where Mike Soroka, who pitched yesterday, was a guy whose whip was really low, and his ERA was high, which meant he wasn't putting guys on base, but he would always have the big inning, meaning he could go 3 innings straight without anybody getting on base, and in the 4th inning, give up 4 hits, and one of them being a grand slam or whatever, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you've given up 4 runs in 4 innings, even though you only had 1 bad inning, and that's kind of like he doesn't put guys on base as much. Now, his whip is starting to come up. Speaking of Soroka, I don't know why I'm staying on him so much because he pitched on Friday. But again, I think he's interesting. Jake Irvin's another guy, extreme home and road splits. And the guy today, Mitchell Parker, extreme home and road splits. And when we look at that, he's been much better at home. I've talked about how much I like betting against pitchers in their second start. Might be a little bit different with Yu Darvish, but I don't think he's going to hold runners on all that well, and I think the Nats are going to run quite a bit. I should have made this the free play because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be on it. Give me the Nats as a lean here. I just feel like targeting a guy like you, Darvish, sometimes you're speaking and it just sounds weird. Targeting you, he's a guy that, again, just coming back from all the situations, what he had the mental health issue, he had some injuries. I do think he's a really good pitcher, but I think the Nats are just in a really, really good spot today. Let me go over a couple of things here that I wanted to talk about real quick. Boston, Chicago has some rain in the forecast. That game could get postponed. You'll have to wait and see how things are going beforehand. As I noticed, it was about a 50% chance of rain. And as I've told people, talking to a weatherman, not me, but another one, when it says 50% chance of rain in your area, that means it's 100% chance of rain for 50% of the area. Does that make sense? I'm saying it to you like you're going to answer me back. But yeah, so rain will hit. We just don't know if it's going to be over the stadium. Is it going to be a little further out? So, that's just something that you're going to have to monitor. And by the way, guys, a great person to follow on social media is Kevin Roth. If you don't follow him from Roto Grinders, he updates all the games. I mean, he's on it. I'm telling you, a great game for bats, great game for pitchers. Talking about this could get postponed. And again, if you're betting baseball and you're betting on the starting pitcher, if there is a chance of a postponement, maybe you want to rethink how you're betting it. Maybe you want to go first 5. Maybe you just don't want to bet it. Those are all things to consider. But I did want to tell you there is some rain in the forecast for Boston and Cleveland. Now, and I was going back to the Mets game. Wind is out at about 9 miles an hour. I don't know if I said that because I don't think I finished my thought there. But it is a couple of good spots today. Now, the game I'm going to talk about and give out my free play is going to be Milwaukee and the LA Dodgers. Didn't get a chance really to talk about the Dodgers a lot. Maybe I should try to put them in more. They're pitching. They're an interesting team because when they get healthy, they're going to go back and dominate the way that they have before. But with this spot, it's 6 to 7 miles an hour to dead center. The wind is blowing out. We have Freddie Peralta versus Emmett Sheehan. And my free play is going to be on the over. Now, if you look at Emmett's numbers, and I know, what was he, a number one pick a few years ago? I don't know how good this kid's going to be, because last year I targeted him. He got beat up. And now he started off, and he's had one or two good starts here. I think his ERA is right around 2. That's going to come up after this game, I believe. I mean, Milwaukee is a frustrating team, just like I talked about the Nats, because they got so many speedsters and they have pop in their lineup. There's a couple guys that just, I mean, when you look at the way that Jackson Church, he's got speed and power. Christian Yelich, I know the power's been snipped there a little bit. Contreras has it. But then you start getting into the guys like Frelick and all the other infielders that they have there as well. Bryce Terang, these speedsters, I think they could be taken off on Emmett Sheehan. You just have to wait and see. And we know about the Dodgers lineup. Freddie Peralta, I'd rather bet on him at home. I do think he is an upper echelon pitcher. But I think this is a good spot with the wind blowing out to take a chance on the over as my free play. So, guys, make sure you're checking out the premium plays over at Pickdawgz.com. Not just me, but check out the other guys. You get to look at the leaderboards. You get to see who's been hot. They do a pretty good job of posting the stuff up there and letting you know what's going on. But I would also say, too, I heard Costi say something on the morning show about buying long-term stuff. I mean, there is more value in it, but you just got to see what's right for you and make sure you're doing the best in your situation of who you should buy and do your due diligence. Like, look at the cappers, see what they've done. You can go look at records. This past week, I'm still annihilating the WNBA. I went 3-0 on Wednesday, hit the All-Star game. We talked about that on here. So I'm looking forward to this second half of the season. I really like the way that baseball's setting up, and I think we're going to make a big push and have a big month. That being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. A little longer podcast then, breaking down 4 more games. Appreciate you listening. Check out Pickdawgz.com, and make sure you're checking out Christmas in July. A lot of guys have some deals going on over their year-long stuff and some of their other packages. But, again, appreciate you guys watching. I'll be back tomorrow.